Have you ever looked into an animal's eyes and felt like it truly saw your soul? In the heart of South Africa's Kruger National Park, a lone lion, once the mighty king of the savannah, faced death with clouded eyes and a heavy heart. His steps were slow, his breath shallow, but his spirit still roaring. Then, something happened, something no one could have predicted. Can you believe that a dying lion, frail, forgotten, would end up teaching the world a lesson in compassion, resilience, and hope? Picture this: the scorching sun, the dry air thick with silence, a faint roar echoing through the distance. How does a king survive when even the wild has turned its back? Stay with me, because what happened next will move you in ways you didn't think possible. In the vast expanse of Kruger National Park, where dry grass whispers in the hot wind, an old lion dragged his steps. The Old King, as the park rangers called him, was once the lord of the savannah, with a mane that glowed like gold under the sun. Now his gaunt body trembled, and the hoarse sound of his breathing echoed in the dust. His eyes, once sparkling, seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 battles. Have you ever seen someone or something that looked like they were carrying the world on their shoulders? That's exactly what it was like. Male lions, when they age, are often cast out from their prides by younger rivals, facing solitude in their final days. It's the harsh, unforgiving law of nature. Abandonment left him vulnerable. Hyenas cackled in the distance, their piercing howls like knives in the dark. He was no longer the feared predator. Now he was prey. But even in his weakness, something in him refused to give up. Maybe it was a thread of hope, or perhaps a sign from the universe whispering that his story wasn't over yet. Each step was a battle, each breath a victory. And you? Have you ever felt that strength that rises when all seems lost? Sometimes life knocks us down, but pausing for a moment and taking a deep breath can reignite hope. Try it today. Breathe deeply and recall a time you overcame something impossible. Pause and feel it. Imagine the sun's heat burning your skin, the emptiness of a roar that no longer comes. How would he face the next night? Something, or someone, was about to change everything. Under the reddish sky of Kruger National Park, the Old King staggered near a dry riverbed where the scent of parched earth mingled with an oppressive silence. His lean flanks rose and fell with effort, and the buzzing of flies around him seemed like a cruel chorus heralding the end. Above, vultures circled, their shadows dancing on the sand like a clock of nature counting down the minutes. Have you ever felt that void that seems to swallow everything? The lion, exiled by his own pride, knew that emptiness better than anyone. Lions can survive up to 2 weeks without food, but severe malnutrition, like the Old King's, weakens even their bones, making every movement a feat. Loneliness weighed heavier than hunger. He, who once led with roars that made the savannah tremble, was now just an echo of what he had been. Yet, he pressed on, dragging his paws with a stubbornness that seemed to defy the wild itself. Who hasn't fought? The weight of feeling forgotten. It was as if, deep down, he knew there was still a chance. Maybe it was instinct, maybe a whisper of fate. And get this, fate was about to send a sign. When loneliness hits, look for a small action, a step, a call, a moment of pause, to remind you that you're not as alone as you think. Even small connections can rekindle hope. Breathe for a moment. Imagine the sound of vulture wings, the stifling heat of the savannah. How would he endure the coldest night yet to come? Something unexpected was already on its way. At dawn in the Kruger National Park, the radio crackled at the ranger's base, cutting through the fresh scent of dew lingering in the air. "Lion in trouble, eastern sector," said the urgent voice. Themba, a sun-weathered veteran, exchanged a glance with Sio, his rescue partner, and they both knew there was no time to waste. The Old King was on the brink of death, and the thought of letting him die alone gripped their hearts. Have you ever felt that urge to help, even when you weren't sure it would work? That's exactly what drove the duo. Rescue teams in, Parks like Kruger use footprint tracking to locate animals in danger, a technique that blends instinct and science. With the jeep rattling across the savannah, the engine's roar felt like a beating heart. Themba gripped the wheel, while Sio prepared the medical kit, syringes, antibiotics, hope in vials. The lion's tracks, uneven and weak, led them to a clearing where tall grass swayed like a veil. There he was, lying down, eyes half closed, but still alive. Empathy washed over them, as if the universe had whispered, "It's up to you now." Can you imagine the weight of that moment? Small acts of kindness, like offering help to someone in silence, can create connections that change everything. Try it today. Notice who needs a bit of support, even if it's small. Pause for a second. Feel the savannah's heat, the crackle of the radio echoing. Would the old king accept their help? The first step to saving his life was about to happen. In the clearing of Kruger National Park, the sun blazed, and the smell of dry grass hung like a veil over the old king. Lying down, the lion lifted his head with effort, his clouded eyes locking onto Themba and Sio. The duo's hearts pounded. A lion, even weakened, was still a lion. Sio, with trembling hands, tossed a piece of meat a few feet away. The soft thud of the meat hitting the ground seemed to echo in the tense moment. Have you ever tried to earn the trust of someone who seemed lost? That's what they were doing, one step at a time. Lions, even in critical condition, can respond to caring gestures as their instincts recognize non-threatening intentions, something science is still exploring. The old king sniffed the air, hesitant. Then, with a low groan, he dragged himself to the meat, each movement a battle against weakness. As he ate, Sio approached, administering antibiotics with a long-range syringe. The lion merely watched, as if he understood these humans were his last chance. Crazy, right? A thread of trust forming there, between a savannah king and two strangers. It felt like one of those moments when the universe lines everything up just right. Trust is built with patience. Whether with an animal or a person, small, consistent gestures, like listening or offering help, create strong bonds. Try it with someone today. Hold your breath for a moment. Imagine the silence of the savannah, the lion's gaze meeting Sio's. How would they get him safely to the next step? The journey was just beginning. The sun-scorched Kruger National Park, and the creak of the jeep echoed as Themba drove carefully, as if carrying a fragile treasure. Inside a reinforced cage in the back seat, the old king rested, exhausted but alive. The metallic smell of the cage mingled with the rescuers' sweat, who exchanged relieved glances. Getting a dying lion to a veterinary shelter was no small feat. Have you ever felt that relief when you realize the worst might be behind you? That's what pulsed in Sio and Themba's chests. Veterinary clinics and reserves like Kruger often treat lions' teeth, as dental infections can lead to malnutrition, common in older animals. At the clinic, the veterinarians acted fast. The old king had infected wounds, severe malnutrition, and teeth so worn he could barely chew. With patience, they administered fluids, treated cuts, and planned a sanctuary where he could live with dignity. Each syringe, each bandage, was a gesture of empathy, as if saying, "You still matter." Isn't it amazing how science and heart can go hand in hand? But the question lingered. Would he adapt to a new life? Caring for someone, or yourself, starts with small steps. Today, take 5 minutes to check in on someone you love, or even yourself. It makes a difference. Pause and picture it. The lion's faint growl, the hum of machines in the clinic. He was safe, but would he find peace? The answer would come in the days ahead. In the sanctuary of Kruger National Park, the old king lay under the shade of an acacia, where the rustle of leaves seemed to whisper a song of peace. His eyes, now clearer, watched the caregivers with a calm he hadn't shown before. The air carried a faint scent of wildflowers, a stark contrast to his days of struggle in the savannah. He was no longer the king of the wild, but, man, he still had majesty. Have you ever seen someone regain their spark after nearly giving up? That's what's shown there. Lions in sanctuaries can form bonds with humans, showing behaviors like purring, rare in the wild, reflecting trust and comfort. The lion's recovery was slow but steady. He gained weight with regular meals and his wounds healed under the team's care. Visiting children pointed, awestruck, as he stretched as if saying, "I'm still here." Each day proved that compassion could restore dignity. It felt like a sign from the universe, showing that love can transform even the weariest hearts. Who hasn't felt an animal give hope back to their soul? Recognize the value of those around you, human or animal. A moment of kindness, like a compliment or a pat, can reignite someone's strength. Try it today. Pause and feel it. The gentle warmth of late afternoon, the lion's calm gaze. But how would his story touch so many hearts? The final lesson was coming. In the sanctuary of Kruger National Park, the old king became more than a lion. He was a living symbol of survival and empathy. Under the orange-tinted sky at dusk, the distant sound of birds seemed to celebrate his new chance. Every visitor who saw him, kids with wide eyes, adults with quiet tears, took a piece of his story with them. Have you ever felt an animal change something inside you? Because look, this lion was changing hearts. Studies show that interacting with animals, like in sanctuaries, reduces stress and boosts empathy in humans, creating a human-animal bond that heals both sides. The caregivers, like Themba and Sio, were transformed too. Every bandage applied, every glance shared with the lion, reminded them that compassion saves not just the receiver, but the giver. The old king's story spread, inspiring volunteers and donations for wildlife. It was as if he had roared one last time, not with sound, but with meaning. Can you believe the impact of a single act of kindness? His journey showed that dignity doesn't end. It just finds new ways to shine. Practice a small act of kindness today. A smile, a helping hand, a moment of listening. It can echo farther than you think. Pause and reflect. The silent roar of a lion, the strength of a heart that doesn't give up. What did this story stir in you? The answer might lie in your next action. The old king's story isn't just about a lion rescued in Kruger National Park. It's about what makes us human. The sound of his hesitant steps, the weight of his loneliness, the spark that returned to his eyes. It all reminds us that compassion can reignite hope, even in the darkest moments. Who hasn't needed a hand extended, a gesture that says, "You're not alone"? Themba, Sio, and the veterinary team didn't just save an animal. They rekindled their own faith in kindness. And the old king? He lived his final days with dignity, surrounded by love, proving that every life matters. This journey teaches us that empathy is a bridge between humans, between species, between hearts. Every bandage, every piece of meat, every shared glance was a reminder. Small acts can transform lives. So how about carrying this with you? Today, do something for someone or an animal in need. And you, have you ever had a pet that changed your life? Share it with us in the comments, because we'd love to hear. If this story warmed your heart, the next video YouTube suggests will move you even more. Don't miss it.